Hi guys, this is Mrs. Allgood and I am here to teach you about the sarcomere today. I know you already did an ILA on the sarcomere, so hopefully this is just kind of putting all the pieces together and allowing it to make a little more sense to you. So in order to understand this and to follow along, you want to have the sarcomere notes, the fill-in notes that your teacher gave you in class. So start filling in your first slide here. A sarcomere is the basic unit on a myofibril that extends from one Z line to another. Okay, so we kind of say like it's a functional unit on a myofibril. And you'll see that the arrangement of myofilaments in that sarcomere on that myofibril is what gives our muscle its striated or striped appearance. Okay, so there's your sarcomere on that muscle picture, and of course this thing jutting out of the muscle cell is going to be a myofibril. So we're going to look at the different parts of a sarcomere just real basically. Okay, and so you're going to label this along with me. Alright, so this thing right here that's zigzagged, this is called the Z line. Okay, so there's another Z line here. And so the way we're going to remember that is that it is a zigzag line. So the Z line marks the end of a sarcomere. So we're going to write sarcomere on this line because a sarcomere goes from one Z line to another. Okay, now we learned when we made our muscle models that there's two main types of myofilaments involved here. We've got myosin, which is the thicker myofilament, and then we've got actin, which is the thinner myofilament. Okay, so fill in your blanks there. Just remember that a sarcomere goes from one Z line to another. Okay, on this next slide, we are looking at some of the different bands that we see on a sarcomere. So first up is the A band, and it's important to realize here that your A band spans the length, I guess that's kind of thin, spans the length of the myosin filament. So we said that the myosin was this thick filament here, and so this part that I bracketed goes from one end of the myosin to the other. So this is going to be your A band. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. All right, your H zone. Okay, H zone is in the middle of the sarcomere, and it's where you have only myosin and no actin. So if you think back to the A band that we did a minute ago, that went from about here to about there, but in some of that place there was actin. There's actin right there. Okay, so what makes the H zone different is it's in this region in the middle where there is only myosin and no actin. So we're going to write H zone in that blank there. All right, then we're moving on to I band. Now your I band is kind of the flip of the H zone. It's where there's only actin and no myosin. And we find the I band surrounding the Z lines. So there's your Z line, and notice you have your I band on either side. So the I band usually goes from about here to about there, and then on the other end of the sarcomere you would have an I band about there. So we say that the Z line passes through the middle of the I band. All right, so now we've got to label what we've learned together. All right, first thing we can label is we can label our Z lines. Okay, so that's a Z line and that's a Z line. Now the reason that that's going to matter, okay, is because a Z line is going to mark the ends of our sarcomere. So if we draw in our bracket there, we're going to tell ourselves that this entire thing that we just bracketed is called a sarcomere. Okay, we can also point out to ourselves that this is the thicker filament, so this is going to be your myosin. All right, this is your thinner filament. That's going to be your actin. And what else can we label? Let's see. We can label the A band. So we say that the A band goes from one end of the myosin to another. So this is going to be your A band. All right, and then we also said that your H zone's right there. Your H zone is kind of in the middle of the sarcomere, and it's where there is only myosin and no actin. Okay, and then we have our I band over here. Okay, this is an I band, and this is where there is only actin and no myosin. Okay, so your I band over here, I guess, would be from like there to about there, and so we can call this another I band. Okay, so that's that. Let's see what we've got next. Now here, what I did to this picture, this is just showing you an electron micrograph of the striations or the stripes on a muscle, and so I kind of wanted to show you what's responsible for that. Okay, so look here where you've got your A band. Remember, the A band spans the length of the myosin filament, so it's going to go from one end to the other, and that's where your darkest area is. But in the middle of that, you can see that it gets kind of light. Okay, where it gets lighter in the middle there, that's your H zone. And then there's a structure that we didn't label called your M line that goes down the middle of your H zone. Okay, so dark is going to be where there's mainly myosin, and then in the middle, you don't have any actin here. So it gets a little lighter here in the H zone where there's only myosin and no actin, and then it gets really light over here because there's no myosin at all and there's only actin. So that's where it gets really light. So when you see that striped appearance of light, dark, okay, that's because of the way that this appears when we take a picture of it. All right. Then I want us to look at what, during muscle contractions, what happens to each of the following bands or zones. So in this top picture, we are looking at a relaxed muscle. And so you notice you see your H zone, you see your I band, you see your Z lines. And then this is what that same sarcomere is going to look like when the muscle's contracted. So in order to help us kind of visualize this, I'm going to show you this McGraw-Hill animation, and then we're going to come back and fill that in.
In a relaxed muscle, actin and myosin myofilaments lie side by side, and the H zones and I band are at maximum width. During contraction, the actin and myosin myofilaments interact. The actins are pulled toward the center of each myosin myofilament. As a result, the sarcomeres shorten. In the fully contracted muscle, the ends of the actin myofilaments overlap. The H zones disappear, and the I band becomes very narrow.
Okay, so let's go back to our notes and let's fill that in here. Okay, so what he said in that video is he said that the H zone disappears when a muscle contracts. So notice in this picture here, actually, let me just draw it with a line. You know, this would be, well, I guess really it would go back a little further. Hold on. Really, this would be your H zone, and this would be your H zone. And so in this picture, you can see that it pretty much is gone. Your Z lines, we would say, get closer together. Okay, so notice that in this picture. Let me erase those. Here's a Z line, and here's a Z line in that relaxed muscle, and then here's your Z line, and here's your Z line in the contracted muscle. So you can definitely tell that those get closer together. In the I band, we say that the I band gets narrower. Okay, and you can definitely see that. The I band would be from like here to there, or here to there. And you can tell it's much, much smaller here. And then the A band, oh, let me put a text box in. The A band is going to stay the same. Okay, so let's look at that in this picture. Your A band, let me get my pen there. There's your A band. There's your A band. It's the length of the myosin. It doesn't change from the relaxed muscle to the contracted muscle. All right, well, I think that about does it for us today. I hope that this really helps your understanding of the sarcomere, and just remember that you have a quiz coming up, I believe, on this coming Thursday and Friday. Bye.